Okay, back again. Had a little breakfast. Still Friday, May 1st, 2020. I thought of a important event that I didn't mention earlier that happened in 2002, and that was Scott got and brought home a Chihuahua puppy named Spike, and Spike ended up being a huge part of our lives for the next 17 years. In fact, Spike just died last year of old age. But the kids, excuse me, the kids had begged and begged and begged and begged for a dog, and I wasn't really a dog person, and I held out for a long time trying to not have a dog. The kids had cats and hermit crabs, fish and lizards and gerbils and hamsters and everything I could think of that wasn't a dog, and they still wanted a dog. And so I finally broke down and told Scott if he wanted to get a dog, he could get one as long as it was the smallest dog with the least amount of hair that he could find. So he came home with Spike, and Spike was about that big. He was a pound or two. He was still a puppy. He was adorable, and of course we all fell in love with him. And the kids fought over him at night, who got to sleep with him. So for a year we only had Spike, and they both loved him and argued over him. And then because of that, we relented the following year and got a second Chihuahua puppy. And so then we acquired Binky, and Binky and Spike weren't related. We got them from two different dog breeders, and Binky, they didn't look anything alike. Binky had a little round apple head, and he was brindle colored, and Spike had a pointy deer head, and he was tan. But they were the loves of the kids' lives. Well, Scott and I loved them too, but we had lots of fun with them. Binky ended up living 15 years and Spike 17 years. They were both very beloved, and so we had lots of fun, particularly Spike. Spike was good about playing. He would chase a ball or chase a frisbee, and he was a little more animated than Binky. Binky mostly liked to lie around and sleep. Binky his legs didn't work as good. He didn't move around as well. But they were still both beloved. Amanda spent a lot of her childhood making clothing, either with a sewing machine or with knitting outfits for them. And drawing pictures and making art projects. And Amanda, probably more than anybody, spent a ton of time with the dogs. But Tyler loved them too. Tyler was more the one that would be outside running around with Spike. So anyway, that was a lot of fun, actually. After I let down my barrier to having a dog and we got one, and I really did enjoy it. They were fun, and they were so little. Spike was probably in his prime, was about 6.5 pounds, and Binky was about 5 pounds, so they were portable and easy to pick up. And we usually just took them, most places that we went, we took them with us. When we go on trips, Scott's mom would keep them for us, and she loved them too. So lots and lots of fun with dogs. Let's see. I think I got the kids through junior high school. Well, they both ended up going to Buchholz High School here in Gainesville. And both did outstanding in high school. Tyler got a car fairly early on, I think maybe in the 10th grade. Nurse that Scott and I worked with had a Camaro for sale. So Tyler, with Scott's help, Scott and Tyler put their money together and got this silver Camaro. It was a pretty car, and Tyler was super proud of it. And so he had a car through a lot of high school. Amanda didn't ever have a car that she bought like that. She mostly drove my car for a while. I kind of didn't have a car. Amanda had my car, and eventually she sort of inherited it, and I got a different car. But both kids were very eager to drive and got driver's licenses as soon as they could. Restricted license and then driver's licenses, and both liked driving and did a lot of driving. Tyler had one accident when he still had his restricted. He hadn't been driving very long, maybe 3 months. And he and I were in the car together. Excuse me. And we were on Newberry Road. I think it was a Friday afternoon. The traffic was, the going home traffic was getting heavy, and Tyler didn't stop in time and hit the car in front of him, which kind of caused a chain reaction of about 4 cars. And we were fine. It crunched in the front of my car, my Toyota Camry, and made the airbags pop. That was exciting. I'd never experienced that before, and I hope to never experience that again. But anyway, the airbags deployed, and the car had some damage to the front end. The other cars weren't really very damaged, but a couple of the people were kind of jerks about it and ended up, filing claims with our insurance, and it took about 4 years for all of that to sort of settle out and everybody to get paid, and that was a little unnerving, but for the most part it wasn't too serious, and Tyler got back to driving and became a better driver after that, I'm sure, and that was that. So high school, both kids were really involved in their classes. They took a lot of AP classes, and both of them, when they graduated, had lots of AP credits and started college as sophomores. They were already, had enough credits to be pretty far over into their sophomore year rather than starting as freshmen. So that worked out well. Amanda was on the debate team and did an excellent job. She was really good at writing speeches and won quite a few awards, trophies, and things. And her debate tournaments would be in different cities around Florida and as far as Atlanta. And so we usually often volunteered to be a chaperone, and I really enjoyed that, and taking the kids to different cities for the weekend for their debate tournaments. One or two times I had to be a judge, and I did not like doing that. That was too much pressure, but if I could be the chaperone and let somebody else be the judge, that was my preference. So we went to Fort Lauderdale area a few times, and Atlanta a few times, and other few places in between. That was her big activity. Tyler was involved in different things. I think at the beginning he was still playing baseball, and towards his senior year I think he was on the tennis team and played some tennis, and again, they both had a lot of academic stuff. Tyler worked most of high school. He started because he wanted to buy a car and he needed money. He started working at Dairy Queen up the hill here. And he did that for a little while. Then he worked for a pizza place. And eventually, at the end of high school, he had a job working at Fresh Market grocery store, which that one continued through college. He worked there. And Amanda, I don't remember Amanda having, I know early in high school she didn't have a job. She eventually worked at Bath and Body Works in the mall, but I can't remember if I think she might have already been in college when that started. Anyway, both of them made great grades. Both of them graduated with honors and excelled at high school. Amanda was a national merit finalist. She did so well on the PSAT that she, and the SAT, that she became a national merit finalist. So that was really exciting for us. We were very proud of all of that. Both kids went to the prom. Tyler had a good time. His senior prom, Tyler had a tuxedo. I left this part of the story out, but at some point, probably when the kids were in junior high school and we were going on our annual trips to Mississippi, we were introduced to a chain of stores in the Mississippi, Alabama area called the Dirt Cheap. And the Dirt Cheap was kind of like it was a retail store, but it was kind of like a flea market. They would sell stuff that had been returned or was overstock at other stores. So stores like Target, Walmart, JCPenney, Kohl's maybe, would sell Dirt Cheap their returns and their overstocks, and then Dirt Cheap would price it and sell it again. So you couldn't really go to the dirt cheap looking for one thing in particular, because you really never knew what was going to be on the shelves. You just sort of go in and wander the store and see, what you might need or want. And we all liked going to the dirt cheap. The kids loved going to the dirt cheap. So we had whole trips to Mississippi where we plotted and planned out how many dirt cheaps we could go to. And at one of those trips, Scott and Tyler both bought a tuxedo. Excuse me, a black tuxedo. And Scott got a little use out of his. I think he wore it a time or two on a cruise. Tyler, on the other hand, got a lot of use out of his tuxedo. He wore it for multiple things, including his prom. I think he wore it to his senior pictures. He wore it to his tennis banquet. He wore it on the last day of school. I don't remember where else he wore it, but he was wearing it proudly in his prom pictures. I think he had a good time, not only with the tuxedo, but at the prom and in his senior year. Amanda also went to the prom, both her junior and senior year. And a funny story with Amanda and the prom. Amanda, her senior year, had a boyfriend in the spring, and she had picked out a prom dress, a long black dress. And then somewhere before the prom happened, she and the boyfriend had broken up, and this might have been her junior year, I can't remember. Anyway, the dress that she had bought, she decided that wasn't what she wanted to wear to the prom. And the rules at the store where she had bought it were, once she had it for some number of days, or maybe once she took it out of the store, you couldn't return it. It wasn't returnable. And she'd already had it a couple months at that point. So it was right before, a day or two before the prom. She didn't want this dress. So she took it to the mall, to the store cachet where she had bought it. And I wasn't there. I only heard the story, but evidently she took it in and asked to return it and cried. And the middle-aged woman that was waiting on her felt sorry enough for her. She took it back and let Amanda trade it for a short cocktail dress that she liked better. So Amanda had a pretty cocktail dress then that she wore to the prom instead. So I think that was her junior year, because she went with a girlfriend of hers, and then the following year she went with a guy that she was on the debate team with. And that year, the year she went, her senior year, she and the guy had picked out the kind of flowers she was going to wear on her arm corsage. And the boy's mother intervened, not at the request of Amanda and her prom date, and decided that the flowers they had picked out were not ostentatious enough. And so she canceled their order and picked out birds of paradise. So Amanda had a great big bird of paradise arm corsage. Phone call. Oh, well, sounds like that ended. Sorry about that interruption. Anyway, so both kids went to the prom. Both kids went to grad night at Disney World, which I was really excited about. I don't know how much they enjoyed it, but it was something Scott and I had both done when we were seniors. And it turned out that the year Amanda went was the very last year that grad night was at Disney World. Disney World doesn't do that anymore, so I was glad they both got a chance to go. Both of them graduated in the O'Connell Center and in black and gold robes. Black robes with gold. No, I think they were black and gold. Anyway, from Buchholz. And we were, of course, extremely proud of both of them. Both of them had gotten accepted to University of Florida. Tyler really only wanted to go to University of Florida. I had to convince him to apply at more than one school in case he didn't get in. So he had applied and gotten into USF too, but I don't think that was ever where he wanted to go. He wanted to go to UF. All of his friends were going to UF, and so he did. He went to UF, and he initially didn't want to live in the dorm, he thought, so he hadn't put in an application to live in the dorm. But then once the school year started, he changed his mind. All of his buddies were living in the dorm, even the ones that were from Gainesville. So he went in, put in a late application, and got in. So after a week or so of living at home and commuting, he moved on to campus and lived in Simpson Hall. And that was pretty much the end of Tyler ever living at home. He lived in the dorm that year, and he lived in another dorm, Springs, the next year. And then he and 3 of his friends moved into a house and lived near campus the last 2 years of UF. So he was home, and well, not when he lived in the dorm. He was home on during the summer and at Christmas time. And then after he lived in the house, he stayed there. But no, he never really lived at home too much after that. But he was around town, so we'd see him from, pretty often. That was good. Amanda, because of her national merit designation, actually was offered scholarships to several schools, and including Auburn and University of Alabama. So she applied to several schools. She applied to Auburn and UF, of course, Vanderbilt. I don't remember where else. And she got accepted to all of them. And we went up and toured Auburn. It was a very nice school. It would have been a nice place to go to school, but she ultimately decided to go to UF too, which Scott and I were happy about because it kept her in Gainesville, so we got to see her. But she also lived in the dorm. She lived in Jennings first and then in Lakeside. So she's kind of like Tyler. She was out of the house at age 18 and never really lived here a lot again until just recently. So it was, a big change after having kids in the house for 18 years to suddenly not have kids in the house. But they were both in Gainesville, so they were around. We saw them pretty often and had dinner with them, and they came over to the house, whatever. So that was all good. We enjoyed all that, and of course all through that Scott and I were working, and I had switched back to working full-time. So we were at the VA all day every day, and about the time the kids went to college, Scott and I started taking little more extravagant trips rather than just trips around the country. We started going outside of the country. We went to Ireland twice. We went to Greece and Italy, Israel, Jordan, and Egypt, all on the same trip. We've been to Spain twice, Iceland, Norway. So we've had some, Peru, went to Peru, had some pretty fantastic trips through since the kids left for college and in the last few years, and really, really enjoyed that. Love seeing the world, love seeing, how different places operate and people live. That's been one of the highlights of my life, is getting to travel, and usually we would just do one trip a year, and so we'd decide where we were going to go, and then sometimes Scott planned them. A lot of times I planned them, and I'd make a real study out of it. I'd check books out of the library and read up and figure out, where I wanted to go, and put it all together with hotels and airfare and all that kind of stuff. So that was that, but that would be my big excitement a lot of years, was planning our trip. Anyway, that was good. And let's see, the kids, I had them at UF. Both of them ended up majoring in having the same major, both of them with the intention to go to professional school. And they both, did. And I'm sure they would tell you it was hard, but they both aced college and did a great job, had great grades and studied hard, got into their respective schools, Tyler into med school and Amanda into dental school. And that was both nerve-wracking, watching them have to go through that process of applying and waiting for phone calls and acceptances, and then actually going through it. But I'm just so proud of both of them. I think it's just amazing what they have accomplished with professional school and their studies, and just both of them did so well. And I think I'm going to take a break at this point.